our panel on video anytime, anywhere, across all platforms. I'm Sarah Miller, CEO of Axis PR and Entertainment, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let my lovely panel kind of introduce themselves. I don't script anybody's first and last names. Eric, why don't we start with you? Just tell them your title, what you're doing, what you're working on real briefly.
Okay, my name is Eric Ramberg. I work at Ericsson. I'm the Vice President of Global Business Development for the Media Division. Just maybe for a little context for those who think of Ericsson as from a consumer point of view, really actually majority, about 80+% of our revenue is from infrastructure, radio infrastructure, deploying out networks, wireless networks around the world. About 60% of the LTE networks deployed are using our radios. About 40% of those we actually run ourselves for operators, including most of the ones in the US. And so obviously mobility is a big part of Ericsson business. My division is specifically about media and about the focus on 5G and applications on 5G and the unique capabilities that 5G will bring once it finally gets fully deployed. And so I think we'll probably have some conversations about that today.
Hi, my name is Julie Sylvester, and I produce the Sports and Fitness Tech program at the Consumer Electronics Show, CES. And as we're all aware, video on demand and video across platforms is becoming very popular in the health and fitness space.
I'm Patrick Courtney. I'm the head of digital for Fuse Media, which is a cable network. We have two networks, Fuse and FM, across 60 million homes. I'm responsible for everything that is not in service to the cable network. So my group is essentially a digital media business unit across product operations, short-form content, distribution, and monetization.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Marjorie DeHay. I am a producer-director. I do a lot of TV, interactive work. I'm working with Bishop Lyons currently. They do a lot of unscripted projects. I've worked with FX. I've worked with a lot of the major studios. So I think obviously video, this topic's really important. A lot of things changing. Really interested in hearing what my other panel members have to say today.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mark Jockson. I'm the SVP of Business Development for Rakuten Viki. Rakuten Viki has two major brands, Soompi and Viki. We make up a global engagement platform which harnesses the power of fandom. So what that means, Viki has an OTT service, a traditional OTT service. What it's known for is crowdsourced subtitling. Soompi is the editorial arm of Viki, and Soompi is known for K-pop, reporting on breaking K-pop news and larger Asian entertainment and lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Rachel Burke. I work in business development at Google for Android and Play, and I work primarily with media companies, entertainment brands, most of the broadcast networks on their strategy across our platform and our form factors, so TV, mobile, and AR and VR.
Okay, thanks guys. So I think there's a lot to cover here with everybody's backgrounds, from content to delivery to fan base engagement. So I'm going to kind of kick this off with Eric, because Eric and I had a very long chat the other day about how the industry's evolved from mobile 10 years ago on the distribution delivery side, moving into 5K from the buffering, the delayed on live events. A lot's changed over the years. Kind of talk to me a little bit about the 5K and where we're going from here with all this.
Yeah, so a long topic, a large topic to be able to talk through. I guess the big cue up here is the fact that we are going through a long change here and a massive change from LTE 4G networks to 5G networks. And it's a big step. The step from 3G to 4G was a much smaller step than the step from 4G to 5G is, because 5G is trying to do many, many more things. It's not only trying to just get faster speeds and lower latencies, which are maybe sort of the easy things to think about, but it's also intended to have support much more smaller structures from a deployment standpoint, to be able to have many more layers of the network in there, be able to provide true quality of service capabilities so you can guarantee deliveries in through certain paths, to be able to support both wireless and fixed, mobile wireless and fixed wireless. So it's a very complex set of technologies that are being deployed out. So as part of it, though, we know from Ericsson that a big application driver that is going to be media, and so a lot of the use cases that we've designed 5G for are to be able to support those things. And I think one thing that I think is interesting, looking at the industry, is that as more and more people are consuming on-demand content, so a share maybe of their viewing, has gone from 10% to almost 50% of on-demand viewing. Still, the value of that live aspect remains very high because people highly value those, that live sports, the live news events, the live, all those sorts of things like that they'll place a really high premium over. And those demand, capabilities that really today's networks don't provide. And so not just in terms of quality of service, but also in terms of that low latency piece. You don't want to hear someone shouting that a goal was scored and then you waiting a minute later seeing that actually being scored. Those are the challenges that are there, and in order to sort of fulfill sort of that promise of live and keep the value of live up. So I think those are maybe some of the interesting things to think about.
Okay, Patrick, I know one of the things, the OTT and on-the-demand with your partners and your brands. Can you kind of elaborate on that, how that's affecting your partners, and where the demands are coming from?
Yeah, so we have owned and operated in OTT environments. So we have a Fuse app across Apple and Apple TV and Roku. At the moment, not Android TV, though it would be great to be there soon. And so we're looking at a lot of demand coming from OTT, both in terms of usage, as Eric was mentioning, and also from the advertiser side. So a lot of advertisers are coming in and asking for TV replacement inventory, and they want to make sure that their campaign, their message is being delivered on the bigger screen. And so having our content in OTT environments where we can sell inventory against that content in a TV environment is very important to us. There are measurement constraints there. It's not quite as advanced as the rest of digital is, or television, so there's still a lot of nascency there, and it's still growing, but the demand is there from both sides, so it's just kind of a technology problem at the moment, and we're working on figuring that out.
I think Marjorie and Julie, you guys are both working in the content space. You're deriving a lot of content out from movies and television, then Julie on the fitness, and then more on the health. Do you guys want to comment on where those demands are coming from and what you're doing to get the consumers more content in the formats they want?
Well, Marjorie, I'll just jump in, and then you can help me. How's that? So I was a little curious about the 5G. Mm-hmm. Now, how does that affect the broadcast network, or is that just mobile devices?
With the broadcast network, you mean the classic TV broadcast?
Just the TV, the interactive TV broadcast that they're trying to do right now with all the different fitness programs. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is the 5G involved in that if it's coming from the TV, from your cable over your internet, or is it just affecting what you're seeing on your iPad or your?
I mean, it will be, so it is a separate network. It will predominantly be used for mobile devices, at least in the beginning. You'll see it used as a replacement for your Ethernet that was, and then your DSL that was plugged into the wall.
Okay, so I guess from a content standpoint, one of the biggest challenges for the companies that I deal with is actual that buffering, whether mm-hmm. it's in their AR glasses or mm-hmm. whether it's just on their iPad and they're mm-hmm. trying to get it a live app mm-hmm. From fitness. But I think that from like the health and fitness, the health club standpoint, I don't think it's going to really affect it that much, because we're still dealing with cable, which is a broader network anyway.
Well, just a quick comment, is to, there are two major sort of technology issues or network issues with it. One is the positioning of the content. Mm-hmm. Is the content positioned so that way it can be delivered, to that end user in the right, in the quick manner, or do they have to go back and back and back and find it way back at the origin? So that's one reason that causes some of these latencies, delays, and buffers. So if it goes back, now it's maybe on a thinner pipe that's getting to. And then the other is, and just in terms of the transition that we went from a different type of delivery mechanism as we went to, stream-based to file-based delivery. So HLS being file-based. That also introduced a whole another set of latencies and just because of the protocol and how it's built up.
Yeah,
So-
I completely
Yep.
don't understand, but I
That's
come
all right.
at it from a consumer point of view.
But-
I don't know where it's
As long
coming
as
from.
it's
there.
As long as it's there and I can see it.
Yeah, and you'll see it, but you'll see them tackled by having, again, edge, caching. So that makes sure that the content is positioned in the right place for the user, and then sort of a redoing the way that you actually hand those files over, so that way you can eliminate, it's a little more costly, but you can eliminate latencies.
Yeah.
So you'll see a change in that with 5G and the other back-end systems that are going on.
I can speak to the platform side.
Yeah, please.
In terms of how we're thinking about this, so latency and video load times and things like that are super important to the media apps that we work with. And so we have a lot of technologies that we're rolling out now, again, in order to make that our version of that last mile, right? The time between the user requesting some sort of piece of content and when it's actually playing on the screen, to make that as efficient as possible. So I don't know how many of you guys were watching I/O, but last week we announced app bundles, which is sort of similar to what you're describing, where it's requesting the content from our servers that the user actually needs. So just as a really simple, basic example, if you're walking around with your Viki app and they're optimized in multiple different languages, you can listen to it in Hindi or Korean or English. I, as a user, wouldn't necessarily need that Korean language capacity, although I wish I spoke Korean and I wish I could use it, I do not. So then the apps that we work with then can basically give the different language packages to us, and we'll deliver those language packages to the user, versus all of that load having to sit on the app itself. So similarly, trying to solve for these issues so that users aren't carrying around a lot of code that isn't necessarily relevant to that.
Right, and we were just talking about instant access.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So again, talking about instant apps as well. Same idea, really, is understanding it's a huge pain point for the user, and trying to solve for those things.
So, Marge, you want to?
Sure. And I'll kind of bring it back to the content space and what's going on right now. I think one of the most interesting things was obviously Katzenberg has announced that he's got $800 million, $200 million from Fox and Warner Brothers to focus on mobile-driven content and producing it at a studio price tag. So he's looking at about $120K per minute for mobile-driven content. So how is that going to change the industry? Well, they're betting the long tail. He's probably, creating this so, one of the big ATTs, Verizon's, whatever, buys him in the long run. But it also shows the shifting patterns of behavior because, if you look at anybody under the age of 30, even under the age of 40 right now, a lot of mobile content's consumed on the phone. People are different viewing habits, and that's really made all of this platform and bandwidth, et cetera, very important. But again, it has to be good content, watchable content. Content is always important in this path. So again, I think this is just a new move that, two studios are backing him in such a big way for mobile-driven content.
So there's a lot of platforms for driving content. The whole goal, I think, is to reach the consumers with the content. And Mark, why don't you talk about kind of what are these options and how's it affecting you, not just from locally, but I know you have a global presence right now with this.
Yeah, so what's amazing about Viki is that it is a global SVOD service. And most of the content is coming from Asia. However, the majority of our viewers are English speaking. And so what's amazing about this, and especially with the title of this session about accessing video everywhere, is that one of the constraints of watching content is language. And so, and you hear a lot of people learning a different language by watching their favorite TV show. And so the whole concept with Viki is about crowdsourced subtitling. And so if you want to watch a show like Boys Over Flowers, that show on Viki right now is translated into 60 different languages, and it's translated by our community. And so the concept of Viki is that accessibility is key when it comes to the technology platform, but also through languages. And so when we look at the media landscape, we actually do see differences in terms of how people are consuming our video content, whether it's on Android or iOS, or if it's on a smart TV, or if it's through a game console. And so we do look at each of the individual continents, and we can see that in some developing countries, we need to work with Google on a stronger, and this is why we're talking about instant access, a way for consumers who have a lower bandwidth to access our streaming video content. But then in the US, where we have consumers who may start to stream content through 5G or through their fixed broadband, then do we serve them differently? Do we start to serve 4K, for example? And so we are looking at the globe and really understanding what each continent has the capabilities of, and then therefore delivering that piece of content to them.
Who on the panel does live events? Anybody here?
Yeah.
I mean, like the
What do you mean by
consumers
doing
who
live
want to see and view live events, one of the big issues from some of the panelists earlier that I know have been talking is that buffering, is that if I'm a brand and I'm advertising, live events are like a dime a dozen. If I could get from millions of people with my brand, but if I'm losing customers because the buffering, they're stalling, it's delayed as a brand and content, that's going to hurt me on the brand side, which ultimately you can't capture consumer engagement for your brands if nobody's on. Does anybody want to kind of touch base on this? Or experiences or any case studies?
Well, one of the biggest things that we have at CES, that our biggest joke is none of the technology works at CES. We can't do anything live because there is so much interference from everybody's devices, their internets, their Wi-Fi's, and Bluetooth. Everything has to be taped before we can show it. So otherwise, we just sit up there waiting for it to catch up.
Yeah, I'll say that. So we do a lot of the World Cup skiing events, actually. Ericsson being based in Sweden, so no big surprise. And so we kind of we have a lot of experience from doing that. We also, our product and service is also used by our customers to be able to do live events. And we've also done some custom things for recently for some of our customers who want to do something actually beyond just the live event itself. So not just making, as you said, making sure that the brand is fully represented by having it be as low latency as possible, as high quality, to that device as possible, but also to allow for more, for the customer kind of drive that experience and be deeper engaged and be able to have access to, multiple cameras or, simultaneously, or be able to follow individual players through a golf course, for example, rather than have to watch the editorial feed or other things like that. So I see actually the live space evolving, live event space evolving and becoming a lot richer than it has been in the past. Got to get the basics right. You got to make sure that the event's there is as low latency as possible and as high quality and beautiful a production as possible. But how do you get those customers even deeper engaged, which means it's going to be higher value for your advertisers, or if they're paying a special fee, they're going to more willing to pay for more. There's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
Okay. I'm going to, Patrick, I know you guys just partnered with Complex, or you merged with them on the programming and what's working and the strategy on digital platforms, short form versus long form programming.
Yeah.
What's going on with that and the consumer engagement with you guys?
So we, last fall was the first season of a series called Complex on Fuse. So Complex Media, this is a digital media company, has a number of hit shows on YouTube like Hot Ones, Everyday Struggle, Sneaker Shopping. They wanted to get into TV, so they came to Fuse, they came to us. We talked about how we could leverage the properties that they have there and put that into a television type format. So we started with a 90-minute block that was kind of an Adult Swim style stitching together of different types of shows from these properties that they had built. It was a really interesting learning experience because the way that a digital media company works is very, very different than the way a television company works. The production timelines could not be more different. So it was at one point where we were literally at a very large table, and it was Complex on one side and Fuse on the other, talking about how to make a television show. And so there was a lot of learnings there, and we got that together. We figured out the format a little bit better through trial and error. We noticed that when you're stitching these types of programs together, what Complex has been used to is to try to get people to watch for that 15, 30-minute piece, and then that's all that they need to deliver. But getting somebody to watch for 60 minutes or 90 minutes is a different thing. So programming was something that we practiced and learned, like looking at the ratings and where people dropped off. We optimized the show. We realized it worked better at 60 minutes versus 90 minutes. So we're at a 60-minute program block now, and we're about to head into we're about to premiere the second season on June 13th, and we picked it up for a second and a third season. And it works for us because it's great television programming, and it works for Complex because they get, like, we essentially fund their productions that they would do anyway and put it on YouTube, but we get linear premiere. So it's a great partnership for that. It works for both of us, and our audience likes it. There's a lot of great overlap there. It's in music and music culture, and our advertisers have responded positively to it.
Margie, what's going on with studios with this? We know where the TV is coming from. What's going on the studio side of the programming?
Well, I think what's really interesting is people are watching clips of like late night shows, and people are like, oh, why would NBC do that? And they take the best of the late night show. They make money off those little clips. So before they were like, no, we don't want our clips on YouTube. And they were like, wait a minute, that's a huge source of revenue. So when you see these movies coming out, you're like, oh, I'm going to watch the trailer. Disney's making money every time you watch a Star Wars. So instead of fighting that digital space like they did for many, many, many years, they've all of a sudden said, oh, wait, this is a completely new revenue model. They've embraced it in the past 3-4 years. So you start to see new content, different content, and then really trying to engage audiences. Obviously, Disney does this brilliantly, and they always have. And once Disney acquired all the Star Wars, you have seen this, like, really, really strong digital to get every market, from like little kids to full 80-year-old adults. Disney has different trailers, different thing, everything in Marvel. If you just type Marvel, there's just tons of digital content because they know that's a moneymaker now. They know it embraces people to actually get into the theaters. So it's been great that the studios have really embraced mobile in a whole new way.
Okay. So I'm a huge fan of, I just got my light stick. I'm obsessed with my Amazon right now, my light stick. But there's so many options of streaming channels with Netflix and Amazon more coming up to the market. Can any of you kind of talk about what's going on and how this is all affecting them and their place in the market?
I'll hit if you don't. Because I just had this conversation about Netflix particularly, because Netflix has been on a big buying spree. It will buy out all the rights to, directors, producers are like, oh, great, I got to deal with Netflix, and then all of a sudden their shows never get seen. So there's starting to be this backlash in the indie community that says, oh, wait, it's great to get paid because, I'm a starving indie producer, but all of a sudden if nobody sees my program, that's not a good thing. Nobody sees this movie I put my heart and soul into. So you're starting to see at the film festivals where Netflix hasn't been able to buy as much because people feel like it's getting buried in this huge content. You're starting to see different distributors coming in. You're starting to see the studios going, oh, wait, offering different things because of the Amazons, Netflix, Apple all doing this big buying spree, but then not properly marketing. Because at the end of the day, they still have to market, they still have to promote, and Netflix hasn't given the indie community what they feel like is good promotion. So it's interesting, and yes, they're spending lots and lots of money on content, but you can get buried in that content. But again, they've changed the studio model forever now.
And
Oh,
I know
really
it's a
have.
Fire Stick, not a light stick.
And
Just FYI for everybody, it's a tech panel.
to that point, I think that this is exactly why OTT services like Viki exist, because when you look at general entertainment services like Netflix, and then when you look at Viki, you are now narrowing the focus to your fans. And you're saying that I understand this genre, I'm going to program specific content that is directed to you as a fan, and it's not buried. And so it's really important that that when you are operating an OTT service, that you are looking at what type of fandom is wanting and needing and wanting to interact with that piece of content. And so then, therefore, I think that what we'll see in the coming years is that more and more consumers will be navigating towards those OTT services that fulfill those needs.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting that's come up like in the last couple of years and of increasing importance is the idea of windowing content. You know, windowing strategy is just becoming more and more critical because you obviously have like where your platform, where your economics are best. For Fuse, it's on cable. We want people ultimately to go watch our shows on TV, authenticating or watching live through their Comcast subscription or Charter or Cox or what have you. And then from there, everything else becomes some kind of a windowing strategy where the economics change and are different, and we look at how we can get the most bang for our buck for our content based on the demand. So, you know, our biggest fans are going to actually watch the content on TV, and then at some point that content will go maybe in front of the wall on our OTT apps. At some point some of that content might go on YouTube, which is kind of like the last place where that would go because the economics for us are not as quite as strong as on TV. And then, you know, getting our content in as an ingredient into other environments, whether it be, you know, Amazon Prime or Hulu in that library or something, and you're getting kind of that passive revenue from syndicating or licensing your library out. So Fuse has large spreadsheets where we look at every piece of content, and there's like a multi-platform windowing strategy to everything that we do.
Well, I think that, you know, to your point about Netflix and your point about the OTTs, the thing for me as a consumer when I'm trying to find something to watch, right? The Netflix platform is impossible to find anything unless they've decided that I want to watch it. So, like on Peloton, does anybody here have a Peloton? Okay, I'm addicted to Peloton. So Peloton is the interactive bicycle that you can live stream classes from a New York studio, or you have them on demand. And one of the things that they've done with their data and their artificial intelligence is they've figured out how to get what the consumer is looking for to them in under 5 seconds. So their entire library is broken down by looking at what that consumer wants, what that consumer is looking for in a class, what teacher they go to most often, and breaking it down so that they can find it, because otherwise you lose interest. You know, you're not going to stick with it. Netflix, within 5 minutes, I'm not watching Netflix, you know? Yeah. So what you're doing with the translation and everything, I think that's great, and you're just trying to get it to different audiences.
Yeah, and I think part of that is a little bit of a platform problem, that the discovery issue, because I agree that you can, I think there's, like, channel surfing is a kind of form of entertainment, and I think like Netflix surfing is a form of entertainment. You can spend 30 minutes just looking at what you want to watch for Netflix and you never watch anything. But somehow you're kind of satisfied.
But people are satisfied.
By adding everything to your list and just feeling really good about your list and all that. But, you know, I think that like it's important that we, you know, that these platforms in which that content is being delivered to are smart about discovery. And I think one thing that if anybody has Comcast Xfinity and they have that Xfinity One environment, that experience, that is super advanced. I mean, they basically take no offense, a Google-like approach to indexing that content. So you can actually take your Xfinity remote, save Donald Glover into it, and everything he's ever been in shows up, and it tells you what platforms it's on and how you can watch it. And that's really powerful. And so that a Comcast survives in this world because it becomes this platform for content discovery. And these technologies are just going to get better and better.
Well, the biggest difference, it's an aggregator.
Right.
Okay, and that's, you know, we talk about the industry shifting, you know, from the operator model, which is an aggregator model, to the content provider model, which is the opposite. Okay, and then that, you know, I believe that, you know, we're going to have this shift back, because in the end, people are going to be like, I hate having to go through 300 different apps to find the content that I want. I like the simplicity of an aggregator model, as long as they do the discovery right. As long as you can easily find it. And
yeah.
I think that I think the Comcast is decent, but is a long ways to go in really actually solving it.
Yeah, none of it's perfect, and I think what Amazon's doing with their channel strategy is kind of interesting.
Yep.
To add whatever services you want, but you're right. Like ultimately, it is the best consumer experience to have one line in for billing, customer service. Like that's what they don't want 300 different experiences to get billed for, or customer service, or to navigate content. Like they want one place where they can just fire it up and watch whatever they want.
And I think you brought up a great point about artificial intelligence, because I think that's one of the things that's really hot right now is artificial intelligence, because especially at CES, I mean, that was like the past 2 years all about artificial intelligence, but when you start applying it to a company like Amazon that already knows your life, or a company like Google that already knows everything about your life, and really, it will find out things about you that maybe you don't even know, content that you don't even know. So discovery is going to get better with artificial intelligence, because it will be able to be smarter, quicker, faster, and tell you what you're really looking for.
Well, Google's got it all down to like facial recognition.
I give a chance to defend this.
No, I think it's a huge pillar for us at Google, especially obviously in the media sector that I work in. And so a lot of the research that we're seeing is like a few things that have sort of been touched on here. One, users are spending about double the time browsing versus in traditional environments, so in that cable environment versus OTT environment. Now, that might be because I think you make a really, really strong point, which is that there is some value in the browsing. I think that's real and that's true, but I think there's also a way that the OTT platforms are able to optimize for that discovery, which is super important as well. And so I think as we're applying our machine learning technology to this, as you mentioned, we're thinking about kind of meeting the user where they are. What is the kind of content that they're searching for? What is the type of experience that they're wanting to have? I mean, the other thing that's super just prominent anytime you do user research or look at our numbers, external numbers, internal numbers, is that users really go back to the same content that they've watched previously. So a huge majority of watch time is on an episode that they've already started, or a season of something that they already started. So as we're thinking about how to design a UX for users, that's something that's super important to us. And Netflix, I think, does a good job. Amazon certainly, and we try to. You should check out our Android TV. It's very, very, very prominent. Watch next screen on the top there. Allowing users to remember where they had left off, and allowing our programmers to program that row based on what they know of for their users. So if someone's just watched an episode of Modern Family, maybe the next thing that they want to watch is Malcolm in the Middle, or I don't know, but using that intelligence to figure out where users are. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we think about. We launched a product this year that's a universal search product as well, so that you can search for Donald Clever and find all that content as well. And I think my last point to this would only just be that I think that is a place where the platforms really can add value, whether it's Comcast or the technology platforms, because we're a search company, so we should be able to help people search for things.
Yeah, I'll just add another note on that. I mean, last year we rolled out for some of our customers the first Android TV boxes for them, and now that integrated search experience, and now with the new version that's coming out that we're getting for them with the assistant, built in, all those pieces, that kind of provides that aggregator view, but an easier to discover view, and it's going to be really changing because it's aggregating now across not just your live channels, your broadcast things, but also across the OTT capabilities and VOD catalogs and other pieces like that. So our customers have been loving that. So.
Okay, let's talk about increasing the consumer experience from where you guys are at in your current roles and what you see coming down the pipeline.
So for Viki, one of the things that we've been experimenting with since we're talking about machine learning is accessibility for our content through language. So we have a human-powered community, right? But as content, as studios start to develop more and more content, then there's going to be there's a mass amount of content that's coming onto our platform. So this is a huge era of television, right? And so one of the challenges that we see is that sometimes the community can't keep up. And so we're experimenting with machine translations, And what's interesting about this is that if you use Google Translate, for example, sometimes when I use it, I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to say. And so what's interesting about our platform is that then if we're experimenting with machine translation, it takes a human being to come in and say, actually, the colloquialism is this. And so when you watch a Korean drama, there are some nuances with the languages. And so when you translate it into English, it does take a human being to say, actually, I think they mean this. And so what we're experimenting with is how can we use AI to take a Korean drama, translate it, and then take a human being to say, actually means this, so that we have superb translations on our platform. So we actually started this with Waka Love, which is a drama that you can watch on Viki right now. It's translated into 3 different languages.
Anyone else want to talk about the consumer experience and how we're increasing?
Well, I think, we did talk about discoverability. I thought one of the most interesting things Netflix did in the past 6 months is when you're flicking through Netflix, it all of a sudden starts the program. Because psychologically, if it starts it, you'll watch that. So you find yourself watching these actual pieces of content and then engaging in their system longer by just that small little marketing kind of ploy. And then, because I have to say it works on me. I was like, I started it and I'm like, well, I might as well watch the whole episode. And then you're just kind of sucked in, and then you're
binge watching.
Yeah, but you get committed to new things that I may never have looked at by a little picture. But once you see the actors performing, so I think that's kind of a neat thing that Netflix has done.
Well, it's interactivity. It's actually engaging the consumer, which, if you can keep the consumer engaged, then you can keep them watching or using the product. So little tricks that they come up with to engage the consumer. Peloton now has high five. You can actually high five somebody on the leaderboard. I'm like, I don't know if I want to high five anybody.
Do we have any questions on the audience at this point? No one? Tough crowd. Let's talk about social engagements, guys. Anything?
I think there was a question.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a question for Eric.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious how much of the content is live now versus pre-recorded. In other words, I've been involved with some efforts for mobile caching of data. So I'm curious as to, obviously you can't cache a live data, it's hopeless. But how much of the stuff is not live and how much of it is live, and where is that going in your estimation?
So, obviously it changes across demographics and locations, everything like that. But basically, right now, when and again, putting aside when you're looking at OTT, essentially consumption and all, about 50% of it is going to be on demand. About 52%, I think, is what the current number is for that. So that's been the biggest increase going there. So I think we'll see across the whole landscape, a higher penetration, maybe up to 60 to 70%. That's to say it's not that live is devalued, and that was my earlier point, is that live actually has almost even more value now just because of how special and distinctive and different it is. People wanting to have, there's a bit of a community aspect of it, there's a bit of a it's real, it's now type thing. I may miss out, I may, there's other things, psychological things that kind of come into play as to why live is going to be continued to value really high. If you look at it from a stream basis, yeah, we're looking at 52%.
Great, thanks.
Gentleman in the leather jacket.
Hi. Thank you for everything you're sharing. It's really informative. I'm curious, do you think there's a threshold of how many apps or platforms people are going to be able to sustain, whether that's the premium, the AVODs, or the SVODs? I'm curious what your thoughts are when you're seeing in the research.
I think research is from the apps perspective, right? So apps on mobile, it's 30 to 60 on a phone. People use about 3 or 4. TV apps, 15 average-ish. People use about 3 or 4. So I think it's something do not quote me, but my understanding is it's 75 to 80% of watch time is top 4 apps. So it's Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, and who am I forgetting?
Hulu?
No, it's not HBO. It's Hulu. So you can see maybe it's decision fatigue. I think there's a hypothesis in the industry that that's what it's about. So I think you could have platform fatigue, obviously, as well. But yes, I think that there's like this idea of like the unbundling, and then perhaps we're kind of the pendulum is swinging back to more of a bundling universe again. So I think it's real.
I mean, I personally, I hate the fact that TV is like an app kind of experience. Like, it just seems like it's broken. Like, it's like taking all the worst parts about channel surfing and making that the whole thing. Like, you have to go to app to app to app.
App surfing.
Yeah, like it's a thing, and it shouldn't be a thing in TV. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's the right thing. Like, if I want to watch a movie, and I know maybe it might be on HBO, it might be in Showtime, it might be on Netflix, but I have to go to each one of these apps to figure it out. That cannot be the way that it ultimately is going to go. So I think that there's a lot of technology that has to catch up. I think there's like the universal search idea is something that needs to, that needs to get better, that needs to get more pronounced, because it needs to be more visible, it needs to get better. I think authentication for TV content, it needs to get better. Like, authenticating across these different apps is a really clunky experience. You got to go to your drawer and look at where you wrote down your username and password for your Comcast login or whatever it is. And single sign-on is like now kind of starting to get there, and so you can like log in once and then you're across everything. So I think there's these technology hurdles that will break those things down. But I think that you can't. A TV is not meant to be based on apps.
And to pull back to your social media things, and I wish I had the exact number, but there was it's like Facebook does more transaction per minute than MasterCard, Visa, et cetera, any other platform. And then they try to get into TV, Facebook TV. Anybody here watch Facebook TV? And see, that's like, maybe some people have tried it, but again, it's trying to capture that TV market, but maybe not on the best platform to capture it, because everybody will watch a little cat video or whatever they're watching, whatever their friends send them. To think of it as a like kind of a broadcast TV like you are, or a really TV user experience, I think there was a bit of a disconnect. I think they might get there, but if you're talking about social platforms, they want to be TV producers, they want to do different things, and they may lose that engaging, what made
Like
them
Facebook Live,
valuable
yeah.
in the first place.
And there was a question in front.
Yeah, back to 5G and live. So, what are your thoughts about the idea that, right now, that there's not enough inventory for premium live because it's hard to consume. So once Ericsson makes it so great, does the burden and go back onto the content creators to make it really super premium, because there will be such a vast inventory to consume?
Yeah, I certainly think.
It's going to have to swing back.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, investment follows where the opportunity is, and if there's been, to date, there's been a lot of blockers to really fulfilling that, and so I think as those open up, you're going to see a big shift for it. I mean, I already, in my conversations with broadcasters, I already see globally, I already see them looking to that and sort of asking about how they should be investing. So we'll see a shift to that, and I think the concept of live and what live will bring is, well, it's different now than it was 10 years ago already, because already there's, 6 or 7 different channels associated with one broadcaster now, where there used to be 1 or maybe 2. Well, now we're going to probably get to a place that actually allows us to personalize and tailor that live experience maybe even more, allow for more events, sort of having, not just your sporting events that you expect and your Oscars and whatever, but also having smaller events and music events and other types of things that were more niche in the past, and now they could become more regular. Metropolitan Opera, in your theater, that was interesting, cool, it was a great experience to be able to do it in your theater. But now, how about be able to have that easily be able to done, throughout your home or in your tablet or your own web.
And what do you follow to that? So, I'm assuming Ericsson is rolling that out in Europe first, and then how do the mobile platforms, the disparagement between the U.S. platforms and the other platforms around the globe, from the technology side and the hype side, how is that going to work?
Well, actually, probably the most advanced deployments actually are in the U.S. from an operator sort of standpoint. It's pretty targeted in Europe. Mainly it's just where the markets are and some other shifts that are going on. But you're going to see, just because of the size of the U.S. market, you're going to see it more regional, and whereas in Europe it's going to sort of really all of a sudden expand out and cover complete the country. So you'll see a little shift that goes on in there. It's as I said, it's a very complex new product, and depending upon which use cases you want to do, you're going to deploy it in a different way. You will see the urban areas, sort of focus on just being able to provide more capacity standpoints. You'll see, and then you'll start to see more suburban and rural areas start to provide more alternatives to that cable connection, that you relied upon for broadband service or other things like that. And then there's other variants too, but that's maybe a simplistic way to look at it.
Any questions out there? Okay, so gonna go down the road. Favorite live streaming channel program: Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. Favorite one and why?
Live stream? Fuse is the...
Oh, yeah, and by far the best. Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I was just jumping in.
Let's talk about the video distribution. You got Netflix, you got a lot going on out there. What's working, what's not working? What do you guys like to watch the most and why?
I still think we live in a content world, and it's kind of what everybody's saying. It's, if you want to watch a piece of content, you don't care if it's on Amazon, Netflix, or where it is. You want to watch that piece of content. And there's, because I think we all have Netflix, Amazon, maybe some of us have Hulu, but when you want to watch the content, it's frustrating because you can't find it. So maybe it is this all-in-one, but I think where OTT really succeeds is that you can watch it all at once. You can watch it on your time. There's, like, if you don't catch it at 8 p.m., then you're like, well, I'll catch it at midnight when I can watch it. So I think there's a lot of benefits of being able to watch a whole series, because there's nothing worse than, I remember Lost, and maybe not everybody, you'd watch Lost, and a year later, it was the next season. You're like, I have no idea what happened. And at the time, you really couldn't watch it. Huh?
Then you quit.
Then you quit. Then you're done. It's like people say
lost.
that Game of Thrones too. It's like I'm done because it takes so long to make the next series. So.
Okay, let's wrap it up, guys. We got 2 minutes to go. Eric, tell us where you think the future's going in OTT. What do you want to see happen? And give us your dream list of where you guys are going in this space.
Well, I'll slightly reiterate what I said in the past, and that is, I think what you're going to see is really a ratcheting up of expectations, not just, we're already seeing on the consumer side, but then that will turn into demand from the provider side. That is much higher quality, much higher availability, reliability of those streams, quicker, turn on what you want, being able to easy access those things. It's no longer just sort of best effort, get those streams out. Oops, I'm sorry, we had a service side problem. Oops, your bit rate's lower because of this or that. No, it's going to be, I want to replace what I expected in the past with something that's 4K HDR on this device. Oh, I switched to this device. It's instant on. It knows where I am when I switch to one or the other, and there's no service impacts.
I want a hologram to pop up in front of me playing what exactly is on my mind to put me in the best mood.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Doesn't it?
I think for me, I think we have a discovery issue, and as content creators at Fuse, it can be frustrating when the marketing message that you need to deliver is very complicated because your content lives across a lot of different platforms, and you have to explain. There's an education element there that shouldn't be there. It doesn't have to be there. So I think the acceleration of these aggregators, I think, is something that I really look forward to.
On the hologram thing, you do have to watch Electric Dreams Kill All Others.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
really,
Oh, great.
but I think you're on a point where it's going to be a completely different experience in 15 years. It is going to be a truly, holograms interacting. You can dance with your favorite, celebrity, whatever, but there's going to be, you're seeing it now. I think the push in artificial intelligence is going to enhance that. It's going to be a much more personal experience. I think that's where it's just going. It's going to be really content created for you, content curated for you, and I do think it will be truly more interactive.
I think that what I'm looking forward to in the future is an appless environment. I think that once the complexities of having an app on the market is removed, then we'll have this concept of always on. I think that one of the things that I like about linear television is just you turn it on and it's there. And so I think that in the future it'll be interesting to see how these platforms make it easier to access what you want to watch.
So we've had a huge explosion of all of these OTT services, and some of them are very niche, and that's been really cool. I think probably in the future, the growth areas that I'm looking at and I'm excited for are live, which we've talked about a lot, but also local, which is a space that I think has just not been plumbed yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes and how we can pair technology with localization to give people content that's really relevant to them.
All right, so if we have no other questions, I'm going to call it a wrap. You guys can come up, talk to the panelists. They'll be here for a few more minutes. And thank you for the panel.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Good luck with views.
Thank you.